Woodhouse Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is bringing you more this holiday season, finishing the year with big savings on the entire model lineup during the Wrap Up the Year sales event. Save up to $13,000 off MSRP on a 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Laramie 4x4 for qualified buyers. Explore all our year-end lease and finance deals at WoodhouseCDJRBellevue.com or WoodhouseChryslerJeepDodge.com. This is Woodhouse. With approved credit, tax title license extra. When financed with Chrysler Capital, $299 doc fee to its signing. Stock number BC240134. Offer expires 12/31/2023. See dealer for details.
Discover Carbon County, Wyoming. Immerse yourself in the great outdoors, no matter the time of year. Hot springs, cold streams, and wide open spaces are calling you to an amazing adventure. Explore our great outdoors in every season and make memories that you'll never forget. Step back in time at one of our museums. Soak your cares away in our mineral hot springs. Plan your getaway today. Find out more when you visit discovercarboncounty.com. That's discovercarboncounty.com. Adventure out.
You work and you live. That is all. You do not complain or laugh or do anything besides work. Whatever you thought, whatever you were, does not matter. You are no one now. You mean nothing. Who are you?
Aaron?
Who are you?
No one.
Who are you?
No one.
Who are you?
I'm Buffy, the vampire slayer, and you are? Anyone who's not having fun here? Follow me.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Kara. This episode, we're going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 1, Anne, directed by and written by Jane Espenson, Douglas Petrie, and J.W. The original air date of this one was September 29th, 1998. Aw, 5th grade.
Yeah, and I was just starting law school, moving into New York City, and having a massive allergic reaction to the air there. It took me a good month to stop having constant red eyes and puffy face from my allergies when I first moved there. I just had to adjust.
Oh my gosh. What a lovely thing to deal with as you're starting law school.
Oh yeah, it was super fun. And yeah, it was 1998, so
Yay.
let's go back in time and see what was going on. The number one song in the US was The First Night by Monica. And in the UK, it was Roller Coaster by Bewitched.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I did love some Bewitched, especially in 5th grade.
Awesome. The box office, number one was Saving Private Ryan. 2 was How Stella Got Her Groove Back. 3, Small Soldiers. And 4, after all this time, Titanic still in the theaters.
Oh my gosh. Small Soldiers. I loved that movie. I forgot that movie existed. You just unlocked a memory for me. Holy crap. Man, I love the 90s.
Yeah, me too. The New York Times bestsellers that week included Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt and Bridget Jones's Diary. And I didn't write down the author's name. And you know what? That's suitable because I hated that book.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was. I love that you added in New York Times bestsellers. That's fun.
I thought that was a nice little piece of trivia. Opposite
sure.
Buffy on TV that night at 8 p.m. were the baseball playoffs. Yankees versus the Rangers.
Yes.
Yankees won. And then Jag, Moesha, Clueless, Home Improvement, and the Hughleys. Buffy got a 4.7 rating, while Home Improvement got an 11.7, and baseball got a 7.5, just to sort of give you the relative values there. And after Buffy that night on the WB was the pilot episode of Felicity, a major late 90s, early 2000s television show.
That's the show that made me wish I had curly hair.
Oh, that's
Yep,
the show
I
that made
love that
me feel
show.
better about my curly hair.
It's good. Gosh, Carrie Russell's hair, so beautiful.
That one
That's a whole
season
other
cut it
tangent.
short, like the entire country was like, "No!"
Yep. That's like a flashbulb memory for me, and it should not be. Like, that's I remember that reaction very well. Ugh, man. And also to note, happening in 1998, the same day that this aired, is one of the most impressive release dates in rap history. It brought about the debuts of Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life, Outkast's Aquemini, Black Star's Most Def, and I can't say that name. Is it Talib Kweli?
Yeah.
Our
Our
Black
Black Star.
Star.
Yeah.
Our Black Star. Brand Nubians Foundation and A Tribe Called Quest, The Love Movement. I do love I oh, Hard Knock Life. I didn't realize that was that old.
Yeah. That
I
was
love
a
that.
that was a
That's still
major
on my
release date.
playlist.
When I was Googling the date, it came up there was like 20 articles about like the day that changed hip hop.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, so we'll link at least one of them in the show notes. So if people want to read about it, there's a lot to
Awesome.
say about
Oh yeah.
that day.
It's like Hard Knock Life probably stands out the most for me. And then this next one, I remember very well. On this day, Jive Records releases a debut single by a new artist named Britney Spears called Baby One More Time. It becomes a worldwide smash, topping the charts in 25 countries. Man, that I remember that very clearly. 104.1 KRBE in Houston played it over and over and over again. Also, going on at this time, the US Congress passes the Iraq Liberation Act, which states that the United States wants to remove Saddam Hussein from power and replace the government with a democratic institution. Definitely a notable time. So, also at this time, lots of coverage and lots of things going on with Clinton versus Ken Starr. There was a recent release of videotape testimony by Clinton, and just lots of legal maneuvering going on and being showcased in the news. The economy at this point is booming. This is the very beginning of the infamous .com bubble. We had a federal budget surplus. Maybe this is why people love the 90s so
Yeah,
much.
it
It's
was a
kind of
better time.
pre 9/11. Everything was looking up.
It really was. I remember it as a very positive time, and I mean, I was also at the beginning of sort of a new adventure, and I was struggling with law school, but still it was a time where I was looking forward, right? I was like,
Right.
this is my new career, this is my new
Like
life.
hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in a new city and
And that new city being New York. Like I can imagine being that age and being in New York for law school. That must have been
there
just an
were
awesome feeling.
there were a lot of great aspects to it. Except for the actual law school parts, everything else was really great. Yeah, I
Oh,
had
that's
trouble
fair.
adjusting to the style of academia of law school. It's its own
Oof.
particular kind of thing, and you just need like someone to be like, "Oh, you approach it like this." And once I figured that out, I like it all fell into place.
Yeah.
But
I got very lucky. This is not relevant at all to the podcast, so I'll just keep it very short. But I got very lucky because my junior year and senior year at college, I had a professor who had con law, constitutional law 1 for juniors and constitutional law 2 for seniors, and it was treated like a law school class where you did, you read cases and came up with your, case summaries, the issue of the case, and he did conducted class using the Socratic method by calling on people. And without that, I think I would have been
yeah,
a mess.
I could have used
Anyway.
some of that background when I got to law school.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Good times.
I was constantly missing the point. Like,
Hmm.
we would talk through a case and I would be like, "Oh, so that means XYZ." And it was like a true conclusion, but it was like, that's
Yeah.
not what we're talking about. Like, we're lawyers, we don't care about this other societal thing you're talking about. Like, I was always
Oh, yeah.
like trying to look at the bigger picture, and that's just not what at least the first year of law school is about.
Oh, yeah. They gotta teach you how to think
Right,
the
they gotta
first
break your
year.
brain apart and then rebuild it in a boring way that's real
Yep.
predictable, and
And
then
then
you can
you
start thinking original thoughts if you have any left.
ugh, jeez. We're
Speaking
so far past that now.
of, abusive regimes, let's
Nice.
get into the
Very nice.
episode, and I'm gonna start us off with, first, a content warning. I'm about to go into some content about human trafficking and slavery, and I am not gonna pretend to hide any of my politics. So I'll put a chapter stop at the end of this discussion, like I did when we talked about whatever else it was that I thought would be so upsetting to people. Um, so you can skip ahead if you want to. This is not a politics podcast. This is a We Love Buffy podcast, but I have to talk about it because it's what the episode is about.
Yeah, it's pretty glaring.
Human trafficking is a word that the modern era gives to slave trade, basically. And it
Mm.
has different legal definitions in different countries and at the UN. And I got into way into the weeds reading about the different definitions of human trafficking under different legal
Mhm.
regimes. The US estimates that around the world there are 27.6 million victims at any given time of human trafficking. Human traffickers prey on people of all ages, backgrounds, and nationalities, exploiting them for profit. We all know that it's possible for anybody to be kidnapped and sent into human trafficking, but let's be honest, it's mostly people who are on the margins of society. It's people who won't be missed, undocumented refugees or immigrants. A lot of Native American women are go missing every year. No one knows where they are. A lot of Black women go missing. Yet, strangely, in this episode, it was all white kids who looked
Yeah.
healthy and middle classish.
It's like the hottest homeless population I've ever seen.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
they were panning around, I was like, "Yeah, okay."
yeah, sure.
No.
So it does a little bit of a disservice, the storyline, because it is so white in this show. But it is true that this is what happens. People go missing, or they are exploited in some way. People who are desperate in some way are exploited and turned into slaves. And the slave work ends up happening in the hospitality, like hotel industry. Agriculture is a big one, janitorial services, construction, landscaping, restaurants, factories, care for persons with disabilities, salon services, massage parlors, retail services, fairs and carnivals, peddling and begging,
Mhm.
drug smuggling, religious institutions, childcare, and domestic work. And then, of
Yeah.
course, there's the sex slaves. There's
Mhm.
a lot of this is all mixed together too, right? Like people who are
Mhm.
labor slaves are also often sex slaves. In the United States, the most vulnerable populations to human trafficking include children, especially in the child welfare and juvenile justice systems like foster care, runaway and homeless youth, unaccompanied foreign national children without lawful immigration status. I mean, they have no leverage to fight
Mhm.
back at all. American Indians, Alaska Natives, especially women and girls. The list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's pretty disturbing, but what disturbed me the most was that the UN definition of human trafficking more than or almost doubles the US estimate because they include forced marriage as a form of human trafficking or sex slavery.
As they should.
Yeah.
I'll just
And the
yeah.
fact that the US does not include that in its definition makes me furious because it is happening in this country and it is happening to like 14-year-old girls are being married within these fundamentalist religious communities to older men. They don't have any other option. They don't even know that there are other options in the world, right? They're so isolated. They're usually homeschooled in order to make sure they don't have
Mhm.
any other outside opinions. Uh I
Yeah, and there
also,
are legislatures, I will say,
yeah,
like, people that think that that's not a huge issue, there are legislators currently in power who actively advocate essentially for child marriage in those circumstances. So this is not an isolated issue or a problem that is of the past.
right. It's legal in a lot of US states, which is why the US can't use forced marriage as part of its definition of human trafficking. And people think that this slavery is happening in third world countries, but it is happening in the US right now. Probably half of the clothes that you are wearing were made by slaves. And it's so deep in the supply chain that you can't just be like, I won't buy anything made by slaves. Like, you probably have a
It's
lot of things in your life made by slaves. John Oliver this week did, or last week, did a great in-depth
last week.
story on slavery within the coffee supply chain. And if you're interested in this topic, that is a really great resource. I would suggest you check it out. If you don't have HBO, I'm pretty sure they post the whole story on YouTube. So you should be able
Mhm.
to see it for free on YouTube.
John Oliver in general is
Yeah,
an
I mean,
excellent, honestly, excellent source of
I love that
information.
show with a deep passion.
Mhm.
There is a tendency to call this kind of human trafficking modern slavery. I I don't see a difference between what's happening today and what happened, on the mid-Atlantic, the middle passage of the Atlantic, the slave trade during the colonial era. It is people taken against their will, forced to live in substandard conditions with no possibility for escape, being abused and exploited for labor. How is that different? It's exactly
Yeah.
the same, and I think putting the word modern in front of it just makes people feel like it's not as bad.
Yeah. And I will say too, so just very briefly, I don't want to interrupt your point, but as a assistant district attorney in Texas, human trafficking down near the border is something that has increasingly become an issue. So within the last couple of years, when I was with the DA's office here, our boss, our DA, wanted us to take some continuing legal education classes regarding human trafficking just because it was starting to come up more and more in our cases. And it is kind of a more nuanced subject that I think a lot of people realize. And there's a conference that's in Dallas, Texas every year for prosecutors, law enforcement, victim advocates called the Conference on Crimes Against Women. And this one particular year, there was a pretty heavy focus on human trafficking. And one of the most interesting talks, the most eye-opening talks that we had, was from a woman who had been trafficked herself. The FBI agent who had investigated the, ring that she had been a part of, investigated her trafficker, and had arrested her in the midst of all this, and the federal prosecutor who prosecuted her case initially for prostitution, essentially, and then ultimately prosecuted her trafficker. And it was this fascinating lecture between the three of them offering their different perspectives and how much they learned about human trafficking and how she was a 14-year-old at a mall that met an older man who showered her with attention, ended up getting a bunch of girls this way, used the girls that were already kind of recruited and brainwashed to recruit more girls. And it was fascinating to see how he preyed on this vulnerable population of young teenage girls, mostly women of color, who were, being isolated from their families and looking for that love and attention. And it really reminds me a lot of this episode where they took advantage of that. And before they knew it, they were completely and totally and utterly reliant on this person. And it kind of opened my eyes at the time to human trafficking being, it wasn't as black and white always as being kidnapped and, forced into slavery. It's kind of that analogy of, if you want to boil a frog, you don't throw it into boiling water. You put the frog in relatively warm water and slowly turn up the heat until they don't realize they're boiling. And it seemed very, relevant and appropriate with this episode, with that kind of cult mindset where they are intentionally preying on these people who, are looking for love, acceptance, and don't seem like they have a lot to lose. And I think that's something that's important, to keep in mind with the discussion of human trafficking. And I never thought a Buffy episode would kind of open that memory and remind me of that. But the more, you were going over human trafficking, I was like, yeah, this is relevant. Like,
Yeah.
this freaking Buffy does it again. But I think, I love that you brought that up as the first point, because I also, watching this, thought it was just kind of an inevitability to
Yeah.
talk about and look at the parallels of it.
I mean, it's an episode about demons kidnapping kids for slave labor. It's a not very subtle metaphor for
Right.
what happens in our world. And I think even in, the 90s, it wasn't as well known how big the problem was. At least I didn't know about it. And it's worldwide, and it's been happening forever. And this doesn't even get us into prison slavery, which I'm sure will come up in some other context. Something that I'm also incensed about. I don't know if there's a call to action here, like, just educate yourself on the topic, and I don't
Yeah.
know, write to your Congress people and tell them you care. There's not really anything that any one individual person can do. It's a system that is held in place by the powers that be in the world, and I am not the person who's going to solve it, but I am the person who's going to keep reminding people that it's real.
Well, I think being cognizant of it is a huge first step, and being, taking the time to educate yourself and being aware of just how prevalent it is. That's, half the battle, is people acknowledging that this is an issue.
In today's economy, cash flow is tight and families are held captive to high interest rate credit card debt. What people don't realize is how they structure their current mortgage can significantly reduce these problems. At Churchill Mortgage, you'll get a free analysis and learn how to eliminate credit card interest rates, lower bills, and start taking control of your budget. Get started at churchillmortgage.com. This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591. NMLSconsumeraccess.org. Equal housing lender. 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027.
Discover unbeatable deals and convenience at your neighborhood family fare supermarkets. Score exclusive deals, earn rewards, join clubs, and clip digital coupons for extra savings all in one place. Our exclusive offers bring savings straight to your card. Explore a wide range of local products that support your community. With easy pickup and delivery options, saving time and grocery shopping has never been easier. Family Fare is all about making your grocery experience easy and affordable at your one-stop shop for all your grocery needs. Family Fare in your neighborhood.
Woodhouse Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is bringing you more this holiday season, finishing the year with big savings on the entire model lineup during the Wrap Up the Year sales event. Save up to $13,000 off MSRP on a 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Laramie 4x4 for qualified buyers. Explore all our year-end lease and finance deals at WoodhouseCDJRBellevue.com or WoodhouseChryslerJeepDodge.com. This is Woodhouse. With approved credit, tax title license extra. When financed with Chrysler Capital, $299 doc fee to its signing. Stock number BC240134. Offer expires 12/31/2023. See dealer for details.
With Buffy, we talk about how it's part of its staying power is how so many of these social issues are still relevant today. And even if you look at this episode on a smaller scale, in terms of, this is about these young people who are lost and trying to find meaning, trying to find a sense of belonging, and they get caught up in the wrong crowd. That's still very relevant to, high schoolers today. And I do think this episode does a good job exploring that. I don't know if this is a good time or a bad time to mention that. You remember how I said that season 3 had my least favorite episode of the series?
Oh, is it this one?
Yep.
Whoa.
And I did a lot of, I've watched it 5 times.
All right, you definitely did your homework.
Yes, because I was like, I want to explore why I dislike this episode so much. And I think because I appreciate it in that it has a good message, it has a purpose. We are seeing Buffy deal with the effects of becoming part two. I don't know what it is. I think part of it is how it feels like it moves a little too slowly for me in
Mm,
getting to the point. And I don't like seeing the Scoobies away from each other, even though I understand and can be intellectually interested in how they cope without Buffy there. I think just overall, I'm too anxious when the season starts to get her back to Sunnydale.
yeah.
And I really still don't know what it like. I can appreciate good things about the episode, but I will skip this one on a rewatch every single time.
It,
And overall, I mean, it's just a feeling that I get with it. I think
it's
most of the time,
grubby.
yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't find a lot redeeming in it in
Yeah.
terms of emotions it makes me feel, because it just makes me feel kind of sad, and it makes me feel sad for Anne, and it makes me think about how this is an issue that is still ongoing. And at the end, I do love that Buffy embraces her role as the Slayer again and feels like she's finally back and accepted it. But overall, I don't find Anne or Lily that interesting. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I wrote down a ton of different points that I thought were positive,
Mhm.
so I wasn't too much of a downer. But this episode is one of those where it's a lot of people's favorite season premiere. Like, it gets good ratings consistently, and I don't know, I don't like Joyce blaming Giles for Buffy being gone, even though I understand it. I
Mhm.
think it is completely understandable that she's upset about this relationship that he's had with Buffy behind her back. I don't know what it is, but it is my least rewatchable episode of the series. Like, I just have no desire to ever watch it again.
That's so interesting.
I know.
It's not my favorite episode, but I think it's fine. I agree that the Lily character isn't all that interesting. She's a MacGuffin, right? She's just a plot device.
Yeah.
She could be anyone. There is a lot of the episode that is just really like, we get it. Buffy's sad.
Yeah.
But it makes up for it with some amazing other parts, I think. There's some amazing cinematography I wanna talk about, and there's some really fun dialogue. I actually think Joyce is right to blame Giles. I'm so
Yeah.
on her side in that conversation, so it's funny that you and I are not. That's great. That
Well,
makes
and
good
it's
podcasting.
I see it. I don't like watching it. I'm just like, this makes me uncomfortable, which is good storytelling. I understand that that is kind of the point, to have conflict, but for whatever reason, I cannot personally get past it. I do not enjoy watching that. That's not true. There are some moments. Anyway, we'll get to them because like you said, there are great dialogue moments. I will say the fight choreography
Really good.
is awesome. So yeah, I'm not going to be a complete downer on an episode. That's no fun.
No, that's no fun. We'll keep in mind your opinion and move forward through the discussion, keeping that in mind.
You know.
So, this episode, the cinematography was done by Michael Gershman. He was the cinematographer for 82 episodes of Buffy, and he directed 10 episodes, including iconic episodes like Passion and later
Oh,
this season, Consequences.
oh,
Yeah,
that's a
and
good one.
he introduced a lot of really beautiful, cinematography moments. There's a oneer in the first act at about 7 minutes in the episode until about 10 minutes and 15 seconds is one single take that follows various people through the hallways of Sunnydale High School. So it starts with Willow in the library, and then
Mm.
Cordy comes into the library, and then it follows the two of them walking out of the library together, and then Cordy walks away and Willow is talking to Oz, and they move down the hall. It follows them down the hall. Then it picks up Larry as he walks past. Then back to Willow and Oz as the camera pans and then zooms in on Cordy and Xander, and it finally cuts when he walks away from that conversation.
I love oneers.
It's an impressive feat. There's something like 80 extras and 100 lines of dialogue or something like that are all captured in a single moving camera shot that, goes in and out of different locations. It has to be perfectly rehearsed. It has to be perfectly shot.
Mhm.
It occurs to me that you know a lot about oneers because you recently covered One Shot of the Dead on
Oh,
The
yes.
Cast of Us. And listeners, if you haven't seen that movie, if you like zombie movies at all, I really recommend
Brilliant.
it. It's so funny and heartwarming. And the coverage on The Cast of Us with Kara, Jason, and was it Randy?
Yes, and
Randy
Andy.
was really fun. Watch the movie, but bear in mind that it starts weird, so definitely
Stick with
stick
it.
with it. You're gonna be like,
Don't look anything up beforehand,
yeah,
but stick
but
with
stick
it.
with it. There were also some other really great shots. There's one where Giles is talking on the phone in his office, and the shot is through the glass window of the door that says librarian on it through another
Oh,
doorway to
yeah. That
Giles,
is
and then it
fun.
pulls back as he walks out of the office. It's just really beautifully framed. And then, of course, the big fight scene has lots of great lighting and choreography. They set it up beautifully with this like sort of center platform that's lit from below. So that's like the stage, right? It's like a wrestling ring. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
they have that moving spotlight. So the light changes and sweeps past people and adds extra sort of drama to the scene. And then there's that famous shot that ends up in the credits where the camera comes down from above and sort of swings around Buffy as she twists toward it, and the
Mhm.
light hits her face and she's holding that whatever that weapon is called, that's like perfect hero shot.
Hungamunga. It's
Oh
a
yeah, it's called a
hungamunga.
hungamunga. um and she's and she's looking defiant. It's like this perfect hero moment. And then some of the other shots end up in the credits, like the pole swinging around the pole
Mm,
and kicking, and then there's like a pole
yes.
jump that's in the credits as
Oh,
well.
yeah, that is cool. That fight scene
It's cool.
is awesome. I nerded out. So I did taekwondo for years and years. And God, I don't know if I could do it anymore, but at some point I was a black belt. And I get so excited anytime there's any sort of martial arts aspects that you can tell show up in the stunts and Sarah Michelle Gellar's training, because
Mhm.
that was something that she did focus on. And so I will say that is probably, other than the quippy one-liners, that is probably my favorite part of this episode, especially because I don't think we've ever seen Buffy have a fight on this scale before,
Yeah, with
like
so
taking
many.
out so many demons. Like you know, she kicked ass, and it's a really great shot when it, lights her up with that hungamunga, which is like the best name of a weapon ever. But I will say too, the oneer shot, always, anytime I see that now, I have a new appreciation for the show and the director of cinematography, because in addition to one cut of The Dead, we covered Marvelous Mrs. Maisel over on Perfectly Marvelous, and M. David Mullen, who is, I believe, is the director of cinematography on Mrs. Maisel, is also known for his oneers. And for those of you who don't know just how difficult those shots are to complete, there was one actor who played Alvin, if you are familiar with the show, Austin Basis, that we had on the show and talked to him about a oneer. And he he did a great job conveying the amount of pressure that these actors feel when everything has to be perfect and it has to be perfectly timed. And if one person messes up, you have to do the whole thing over again, because, obviously there are no cuts. So Buffy, I think there are a couple other notable oneers in this season, but I think we will definitely be calling them out whenever we see them, just because we have an appreciation for how difficult those shots are. And it's kind of fun when you're watching it to figure out if it's a single take or not,
Yeah.
single
And then
shot.
rewind it and watch it and be like, oh, look how they
Mhm.
swing through and how they had to, you know, organize this and organize that. There's a very funny bit on an episode of 30 Rock about a oneer that Tracy Morgan's character keeps messing up.
That's fun. That's a good show.
Yeah, 30 Rock has some, yeah, I could talk about 30 Rock for a whole other podcast.
As I watched this episode again for like the fourth time is once I actually started taking notes. I tried to focus on stuff that I liked about it and aspects of it that did really entertain me. And I do enjoy, as much as I hate seeing the Scoobies apart, I do enjoy watching them try to cope with the absence of Buffy. And the opening shot and opening line of Willow
Oh, hey, big boy.
standing in the grim, yeah, like, hey, big boy. And Xander, grabs him, and you see Oz kind of fumbling around, trying to get the steak out of his pocket, and they're just doing it's an okay job. They didn't die, so it was fine. And later they kind of make fun of Willow for the quip, like, hey, big boy. And she's like, well, the Slayer always has some fun quip. Like, I do enjoy watching them try to deal with vampires. But I don't know. I'm missing all the Scoobies together, but we get a lot in this episode. We get a lot of, Xander Cordelia moments with both of them kind of being nervous, which felt very accurate and spot on teenager romance to me, being anxious about seeing each other and assuming that the other, moved on and had all this attention from the opposite sex over the summer. And they have some really great quips. I do like how, what does he say? He says something about how long did it take for you to, fall for some cabana boy or pool boy or something like that. And she throws out, what about you? Like, and mentions Inca Mummy Girl, the title of the episode. And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I know about that. I do like that exchange.
Yeah.
And, the plan, they have some great quotes back and forth where Cordelia's out helping them in the graveyard and Xander's basically telling her, like, you're bait. Go act baity. And she's like, what's the plan? And Xander's like, the vampire attacks you, obviously. And she said, and then what? And he goes, the vampire kills you. We watch. We rejoice. Like, just
So mean.
it's so mean, but it is some really great back and forth.
Yeah.
And I do, I missed Sunnydale. So I like seeing what's going on the first day of school. It is weird that there are so many students all of a sudden in the library.
Yeah.
It's more than I think we've ever seen. We get a little Jonathan action
Yeah. Is that our
at the
first
beginning.
glimpse of Jonathan?
I don't think it's our first glimpse. We've seen him before, but I think this might be the first time that he had more than one or two lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
We definitely see him in the next episode. But I like the introduction back to Sunnydale. I love Xander's quip to Willow at the beginning, like, I can't wait to see Cordelia. And then I can't believe I can't wait to see Cordelia. And Willow's contribution to that is, I wonder what our first homework assignment's going to be. And I was like, they're doing a very good job of trying to remind us of these characters and maybe remind new viewers who these people are and set them up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Those are my favorite parts of the episode, is when we are back with our Scoobies. And of course, Larry. I think that might be one of my best or my favorite quotes of the season.
If we can focus,
Yes!
keep discipline, and not have quite as many mysterious deaths, Sunnydale is gonna rule!
It's so funny. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
It's such
But
a great moment.
And I get that it's important. It is important to see how the Scoobies would fare without Buffy. It kind of sets up some necessary conflict. Clearly, they would be having a hard time without her, just like the conflict between Joyce and Giles is understandable. I do see her point, and Giles is the most logical person to blame, but it makes me sad and a little uncomfy.
I just wish I could talk to her. The last thing we did was fight.
Joyce, you mustn't blame yourself for her leaving.
I don't. I blame you. You've been this huge influence on her, guiding her. You had this whole relationship with her behind my back. I feel like you've taken her away from me.
I didn't make Buffy who she is.
And who exactly is she?
I can't blame Joyce a second for her opinion. Buffy was, what, 15 when she got her calling as the Slayer, or 14? And when she moved to Sunnydale, I think she's 16 when she moves to Sunnydale and meets Giles.
Because
So
they're juniors.
yeah, and so Giles is, he's following this ancient order, the Watchers, which, up until this point, we don't know that much about. Just like the Watchers sent him, and there's a Watchers Council, and it just doesn't mesh very well with like American laws, like regarding a minor and influencing a minor without the consent and knowledge of their parent. He could very easily be thrown in prison for his behavior. If
In real-time life,
Yeah.
Giles could get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, like if Joyce disregarded Buffy's whole like don't get the police involved thing, like Giles would be in prison for child endangerment. And it's not just Buffy that he's endangered. It's also Willow and Xander and Cordy, right? Like he keeps wrapping them up in his actions, and they're not even the Slayer. So he's the most irresponsible adult in the world. Like we all love
I
Giles.
know.
He's got this fatherly vibe and stuff, but every now and then I take a step back and I'm like, what the fuck, man? You're getting
Like
children
he
killed.
knows Willow and Xander and Cordy and Oz are out there in the graveyard trying to kill vampires.
Right. And he's like, try
Like,
not to get killed. Like he's so
right, it's
mellow
like,
about
damn
it.
man. I will say I do wish we had seen a conversation either between Giles and Joyce before this, because I'm assuming there had to have been some sort of acknowledgement or
Yeah.
conversation once Buffy was gone, because when he, comes to her and tells her about this lead he was following, he mentions, nothing to do with vampires, actually,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada.
They've
So he obviously
clearly
knows.
talked several times, right? Because he probably comes over after every trip. I have sort of written the fan fiction of this in my head that, Buffy goes missing and Joyce reaches out to Willow and is like, Buffy isn't home. I don't know where she is. She told me all this crazy stuff before she left about being the Slayer. And Willow's like, I better get Giles and come over and explain everything. Like, I think they had a big powwow. Ooh, I can't believe I used that word.
Yep. It's still internalized. Yep. It's
still in there. All right. I'm going to rephrase. I think they had a big summit meeting where Giles had to explain as much as he could to Joyce, and we just didn't get to see it. It would have been nice to show it in even like a little montage of like what the summer was like, and like just we didn't even need to hear the dialogue. Just seeing Giles in a room talking to Joyce and her being upset would have been enough.
Exactly. Because if I don't have children, but I can imagine if I was in Joyce's position, or imagine the reaction of one of my parents if something like this happened, it'd be like, well, I'm going to go find the adult who should have been more responsible and, lay into him. And I can imagine that was one of the first things Joyce did.
Yeah. I can't imagine it's the first time that the council has had to deal with a parent, right? They should have like a protocol for this. Like, yeah, a parent found
Really
out about the
should.
Slayer's role. Let's, send in the counselor team.
That's like, okay, this my millennial is showing, but with Harry Potter in the Hogwarts wizarding world, if a muggle born ends up being selected and admitted to Hogwarts, Dumbledore himself, typically, or some sort of other school official, goes, sits down to the parents, explains, magic is real, BT dubs, and kind of sets the scene. When life and death is on the line as a slayer, why don't they have something in place in the 90s at that point to address it with the parents? I mean, I guess maybe the storyline would be a little different
Yeah, it would have to be
for the
different, but it
show,
would
but
also be an interesting story. I mean, I like
Mhm.
that they chose to tell a story where Joyce finds out later into the show so that we get to have all of the
Yes.
juicy, getting used to the idea, coming to accept the idea, struggling with the idea stuff with Joyce.
Mhm.
If she had
It is an
known from the
interesting
beginning,
storyline,
it'd be a really different story. It would be a story about like, why is Joyce putting up with this?
right? Then it's like, you're letting your daughter do this or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works way better for her not to have known until pretty much now.
But like Kendra says, when we meet Kendra, she says, my parents sent me to my watcher when I was a child. That's how
Mhm.
seriously the calling is taken among my people. So clearly, where she's from, do we ever know where she's actually from, or is it just like the Caribbean? I think
I
it's
don't remember.
vague.
I don't think they actually give her much.
Yeah, like where she's from, they know about Slayers and the whole community knows about Slayers. Like, how
Mhm.
many Slayers have come from that community that they have this tradition in it?
Yep.
But,
And how do they
yeah.
know?
Yeah, like, how did they know? And how early, did her watcher contact her that Buffy never had that? Like, she only got contacted when she got her calling. We all saw
Yeah.
that in Becoming Part 1. So, yeah, I also kind of blame Giles. He was the person with the most knowledge of
Yeah.
anybody, so therefore, he had the most power to affect events, and he let a lot of fucked up stuff happen. Like, he shouldn't have let Buffy be dating Angel and pretend that he didn't know that it was getting serious. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was a little wild. A little
Letting
bit.
Willow do that spell was kind of ridiculous. But once he was kidnapped and she wanted to do the spell, like, that makes sense. Then we just have to talk about
Yeah.
how the doctors in the hospital are completely incompetent.
That's one of my favorite parts. Like, they just don't understand or just happen not to check in for maybe an hour at a time. Someone who has a head injury, it's fine. Weird
Oh,
sounds,
smells coming out of there.
candles. Yeah, like,
We're in an
whatever.
oxygenated environment. Light some herbs on
I
fire.
know. Like, the cops and the staff of the hospital in Sunnydale are tremendously stupid.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, but it makes the show more interesting. So,
Yeah, it's a lot more fun. It's a show where you can't rely on authority figures.
and Giles really does seem to treat the Scoobies as peers, as equals for the most part. Every now and then he throws out the, kind of librarian watcher card, but not that
I mean,
frequently.
he bosses them around, but not like they're like minors, just like they're
Yeah.
underlings. He's
Yes.
he doesn't
Yep.
seem to have any concern really for their safety after the first few episodes of season 1. After that, he's like, "All right, whatever. I
Yeah.
guess you guys are all involved now and I'll make use of you."
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you think too hard about the the adults on this show and their glaring flaws, then you just go down the rabbit hole. It's
Yeah.
one of those where we just have to suspend our disbelief a little and go with it because otherwise nothing would make sense.
I mean, it's campy, we've talked about this. It's
Yeah.
exaggerated, it's metaphoric, it's not meant to be realistic. It's just hard to look at some of it with a 2023 lens and not be like, "What the fuck, man?"
Yeah. It's like, this is some serious neglect going on, guys. This does not make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I understand Joyce blaming Giles. I get it. I just don't enjoy watching it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just, I don't know. So most of the time I like to pretend that the next episode, Den Men's Party, is the beginning of season 3 because, spoiler alert ish, a lot of this stuff inevitably is covered in the next episode.
Yeah.
It's just, anyway.
Well, since
I don't
we're
know.
speaking of negligence, I did want to make an observation about the hell dimension that Ken sucks Lily and Buffy into. And that is that they clearly do not have OSHA in hell because none of those platforms have safety rails on them, which is evidenced by Lily simply shoving Ken off of one of them at one point
So bad.
in a very anticlimactic way for him. He's at the middle of like this big grandiose speech and she's just like, pop. And over he goes. It's very satisfying. But I was like, yeah, that's what happens when you don't have safety railings. It's the same problem of like the Death Star, like never has any
Yeah.
safety
Oh my
railings. So
gosh.
people are always plummeting to their death in those Star Wars movies.
It's just not safe.
Yeah, and here again, we have this like lack of safety precautions that are standard in most workplaces. I get that they don't care about their workers.
Their liability insurance must be insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have disposable labor, but like they could get hurt, as we saw.
Oh yeah. That's that whole underground hell dimension. There's more. We can talk about that in the spoiler section. But it's just fascinating
I
to
love the
me.
sort of steampunk kind of vibe of it. Like
Yeah.
it looked like subway tunnels or something. And
Yes.
I didn't really understand what the work was that they were doing. Like what
I don't think they ever make it clear.
Yeah, but it's, it's gonna be horrible, and it also isn't clear if there's, like, a whole bunch of people that were already in there enslaved that Buffy failed to save. I think there are.
Yeah.
I think we see them
And
in the background, and it's like, "Oh, she only ended up saving, like, 4 people, but at least she shut down the
that's
pipeline."
true. And it's interesting, one thing that popped up when I was doing research for this episode trying to find trivia is how many people think that hungamunga that we're talking about
Mhm.
was now I'm drawing a blank, like a hammer and sickle because she was holding that
Oh,
hammer in the other
yeah.
hand.
And
And
they're
it
all
does.
like, It's about communism," and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
it isn't."
I mean, no, but I can kind of see it like when you glance at that shot, if you don't pay too much attention, that it looks very much like she's holding a hammer and sickle. I was like, no, that's not it. And I think it's interesting. I don't know, like how many different rabbit holes people can go down with this episode, but that was one that I don't see. I think it's more about looking at people in desperate situations, taking advantage of the youth, and Buffy, I think it's an important juxtaposition too, because we see, Lily's struggle and Ricky's struggle, and Lily, formerly Chantrell. We haven't really mentioned that
Mhm.
yet, but the reason she is familiar to us is because she was one of the people back when Ford was being ridiculous trying to become a vampire. There was that little kind of culty group that worshiped vampires and kind of romanticized them. And she talks about how she is kind of easily swayed and she clearly has tendencies to lose herself. And part of the evidence that leads Buffy to seeing that there's this cult going on is that chanting of, what is it? I'm nobody.
I'm no one. I'm no one.
I'm no one. I'm no one. And that is such a huge point in this episode where we see Anne. Well, I keep calling her Anne because that's how she is known later. But
Lily.
Lily in this episode, we see her struggling with this identity. We see a group of people struggling with their self identity. And the juxtaposition of that and Buffy finally embracing her identity as the Slayer outside of, being a job and something she has to do.
I'm Buffy, the vampire slayer, and you are?
It's so good. I love that one. Like that's when I get kind of amped for the season going forward. But I think that is the point.
Yeah, Ken is the villain, but he delivers some really important lines about
Mhm.
the way that despair, which is definitely how Buffy is feeling, can
Oh, yeah.
suck he literally says it sucks the life out of you. Now, he means despair makes you vulnerable and I suck the life out of you by enslaving
Yeah.
you,
Literally.
but it is what is happening to Buffy, right? She's living in this state of despair where the world around her is gray and she can't even bring herself to defend herself from like gross
Yes.
dudes at a
The
diner
grab-assing.
grass. Yeah. And
That every time makes me
you're so angry at those guys, right? You want to like call off and hit
Yep.
them. And
Yep.
and he also talks about hope. Like once they're in the dungeon and everything, it's all about removing their identity and removing
Mhm.
hope so that they never fight back. And apparently this has always been successful. Humans don't fight back until
Yep.
Buffy
Hope
comes
is a
along.
dangerous, dangerous thing if you're trying to oppress any sort of population. And while there are plenty of real life examples of that, if I start talking about them, I will get angry and go down a political rant. So I'll just bring up the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And Katniss Everdeen being seen as this spark of hope, and that's why President Snow so badly wants to shut her down, because she gives people hope. She gives them something to fight for.
She's defiant
Ugh.
against the despair and
Yep.
and therefore an enemy of the state. And so that's Buffy in this
Mhm.
situation, right? She points out, he's like, that's why we choose you. And she's like, you
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
choose me. I'm not
Love that.
You've bitten off more than you can chew, buddy. And he obviously has because she kicks ass. And also he gets murked in the most amazing way with that portcullis coming down on his legs. It's really,
Well,
really fun.
that makeup prosthetic job, I
Oh
just have to
yeah.
admire that. It
And
drives
he's
me a
so
little crazy.
angry about having to glue his face back on. I feel like that comes up
Damn it.
in another movie. Like, do you know how hard it is to put this face on? Like maybe Men in Black or something.
That sounds familiar. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I just thought of the giant cockroach guy in that movie. Ugh.
Oh.
Hmm. So
Oh,
gross.
I
But
also
I do
thought,
like,
"Who are you? I'm no one. Who are you? I'm no one." And then she's like, "I'm Buffy, the Vampire Slayer." It's very Arya Stark, right, from Game of Thrones.
yes,
It's like this
a
a girl
girl
has
has
no
no
name.
name.
I was waiting for Buffy to be like, "A girl is gonna kick your ass."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Did who came first? This episode of Buffy or,
George
uh,
R. R. Martin.
like, the 5th or 6th book of the Game of Thrones series?" And I actually think I've read the Game of Thrones books. I don't think
Mm.
that the I'm a girl has no name and all that stuff. I don't think that's in the books. I think that's a pure TV invention. So this was definitely
I can't
first.
remember.
Oh, that's nice.
Those books are so dense. But I did like that. I liked that. I thought of Arya too, and I was like, yeah,
I feel like
get him.
Buffy and Arya would definitely get along.
Yeah, simpatico.
Arya would be like how Arya was when she met up with Brienne of Tarth again, and
Yes.
she was like, "I don't want to fight him. I want to fight you." Like she'd
Yep.
be like, "Buffy, she's cool. I want to train with her. I want to fight her. Like she'll make me better." The two of them
Damn,
would
now I want to watch Game
understand
of
each
Thrones
other.
again. But I do like Ken's. I think did you quote this directly? And my ADHD is going off. But when he said, "What is hell but the total absence of hope?"
I didn't quote it directly.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that line is just. I mean, it's so good, and it's applicable in every society in multiple situations. And I do like that kind of depth that they're giving to the episode there. And Buffy has that one quote I do love when she's trying to be quote unquote undercover, and she's
Oh
like,
yeah.
I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I thought, hey, what's with all the sin? I need to change. Like, I'm dirty, I'm bad with the sex and the envy and that loud music us kids listen to nowadays. And then she's just like, oh, I suck it. Undercover, where's Ken? Like, I love that because it's kind of showing us how Buffy's strength. Like, she is the opposite of the type of people they target. She is the opposite of Lily. And I do like seeing her kind of snap to it and find her strength and find her identity again.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the gist of why I don't like rewatching this episode, because I'm very impatient by nature and I just want to get back to the Buffy that I know and have fun watching. But God, I love that so much. I'm Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you are.
It's one of the best lines ever. She doesn't often say it. There's only 2 times in the series when she says, "I'm Buffy the Vampire Slayer." And I was pretty excited to capture it. So here, I'll play it again.
I'm Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, and you are?
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
One scene we haven't talked about, and I'm just going to play the audio of it because I just love Buffy's dialogue in this.
What are you doing?
Breaking into your office and going through your private files. Candidate for what?
I'm calling the police.
Now you've got a whole bunch of candidates here. I wonder if any of them are missing like Ricky. Gosh, I bet they are.
You're getting yourself in a lot of trouble.
I don't want any trouble. I just want to be alone and quiet in a room with a chair and a fireplace and a tea cozy. I don't even know what a tea cozy is, but I want one. Instead, I keep getting trouble, which I am more than willing to share. What are you doing with these kids?
Nothing. I give him the names of the healthy ones.
Give them to who?
Gosh, I love how she just straight up admits, like, yeah, I broke into your office and went going through your confidential files.
And when she's like, I'm calling the police, and Buffy just like casually rips the phone out of the wall, and it's like,
oh yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't work today with cell phones, but it's so
right.
satisfying.
She'd have to just, like, grab her cell phone out of her hand or something and smash it.
Yeah.
Which I think that would be, that's the equivalent. It's Buffy like grabbing an iPhone and just crushing it with her hand. Yeah. That would be awesome. But that, she's getting her confidence back, because when you think about that scene juxtaposed with, we see at the very beginning of the episode, the kind of bustle of the first day of school and all the Scoobies reuniting, and it cuts immediately to Buffy sitting alone in her kind of sad little rental apartment, and she just seems lost and lonely. And then by the end of the episode, she's
fully Buffy again,
back.
I find it very satisfying to go from her despair state to her I am Buffy state. And she doesn't lose the sadness, she just loses the inertia, the feeling of, so I want to disappear from it all. Like, she gets past that part of the despair, But you know that she's still sad when she goes home. She hasn't completely recovered from what
Oh,
happened
yeah.
with Angel.
How could she?
Yeah.
Like that poor Buffy. Buffy needs a therapist real bad.
Yeah, she does.
Like to process all of that. And I think that's probably selfishly another reason why this episode bugs me, because I'm just like, but where's Angel? What is happening?
Oh.
Like, I want her to think about it or say something, or like, I don't know. Like,
Well,
I don't
he's in
know.
her dreams.
Yeah.
And he says
That's a
that the
weird
creepiest thing, right? First of all, it's a
that's such a
daytime
weird
dream.
sequence.
So she's dreaming about him in a scenario where she's never seen him. They're at the beach
Mhm.
in the summer, and he says, "I'll never leave you, even if you kill me." And that's when she wakes up. And
Ugh.
it's like, yes,
Yeah.
she's getting comfort from Angel in her dream, but then it's like a threat also.
Yeah, I didn't love that. I
And
don't
it
know
was
why.
more like, "I won't leave your thoughts, not I, Angel, won't leave you." It's more like, "You're never gonna get rid of the guilt of sending
Yeah.
me to hell."
Well, because that was also completely not in character for Angel. That's how Buffy is interpreting and
Yeah, this is her
imagining
own
what he would be like.
feelings. Yeah.
And again, she's a teenager, so I understand that her perspective is a little bit different, but that just felt, I don't know, the beach thing felt a little cheesy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that I'm against cheesy, because I love Buffy. A lot of the best moments are cheesy Buffy moments. There's just something about it. But I do think I can see why it is a necessary episode in terms of character development and in terms of getting us back into, you know, the show and dealing with the ramifications of becoming part 2 before kind of taking off full steam again.
Yeah. And it
Also,
sets
I'm
up the
glad.
next episode perfectly with her coming home and hugging Joyce.
That
And
is a nice moment. And poor Joyce had probably been so used to, a knock on the door and it's Giles or somebody else telling her they haven't found anything, and had probably kind of lost a little hope. And then to have it actually be Buffy this time, I can imagine was wonderful. One thing I don't get though, like Buffy's dad lives in LA. Like, wouldn't they have really examined that first? Like, she's probably more familiar with LA. They used to live there.
yeah, but LA is a huge city, and her father probably doesn't live in downtown LA.
True. Well, in downtown LA is not super popular.
It is
At least
now.
not now. Okay, I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know, depending on how it was, or at least then
Yeah.
is what I meant. Like, I don't know what it's like now,
It was
but
not a very nice part of the city 20 years ago. Now it's all revitalized and there's like artist lofts and hip
schmancy
restaurants and stuff. Yeah,
restaurants.
it's all gentrified.
I'm
Oh, you know
just
what we haven't
saying.
talked about is
Hmm.
the scene where Lily blames Buffy for Ricky. She's like, "Is it you?
Oh,
Could you
yeah,
could have brought it with you." And the look on Buffy's face of like, "I can't accept the guilt for this.
yeah,
I already feel guilty for every time I haven't saved a person, and like how dare like she's so conflicted and she just leaves, but
yeah.
she
It's
doesn't
like,
give up.
don't remind me.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it says a lot too about Buffy's character, which probably made this sting even more. Buffy, we've talked before about how, at least I think we have, she's almost too willing to be a martyr.
Mhm.
And that sacrifice, like that desire to be able to sacrifice herself so nobody she cares about will get hurt. She is so selfless in that aspect that it goes against her interests sometimes. It's like it almost fights against her survival instincts for herself. And we see here again, like Buffy is not standing up for herself against that creepy guy that grabs her ass in the diner. Like, she seems down and dejected, but at the same time, once she sees that Lily needs help, she's more than willing. Like, she's maybe
Yeah.
a bit reluctant at first, but she steps in, and wants to help out someone who really truly needs it. So for her then to get that kind of bit of a backlash and some judgment from Lily, that had to be pretty
Really
painful.
painful. Yeah.
I guess my other little note is the costuming in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Like I trying to find some bits that I enjoyed, and I think they do a good job of kind of at least putting the extras and these people in very grungy clothes. The colors of the clothes are all pretty dark and understated, and I think that really does help set the mood and the tone of the episode. And I will say, I think Buffy's diner outfit
Oh,
is
so
one of my
cute.
favorites. It's adorable
And the
with her
braids?
little braids. Yeah, like it's a win. It's a very nice fashion moment. It reminds me of a certain other uniform that she ends up wearing at a workplace later on in the
Oh,
in
yeah.
the series that is also enjoyable. But I do like that costume choice and how bright and clean it is compared to when we see her kind of on her own in her apartment and dealing with all of this depression and
Yeah, she's in gray,
loneliness.
and everybody else is
Mhm.
in gray and black, and, uh
And the Scoobies too, their scenes and their outfits, everything is so much cleaner and brighter.
yeah.
It
There's a lot of
just is.
pastels and happy
Yes.
colors. I
It's
will
great,
say
a
I
great
was
visual.
sad to see the return of the ugly purple hat
I
on Willow. I
know.
was like,
So
"Oh, it's
bad.
back." It's,
Ugh,
like, so unnecessary to
it
all of
really
her
is.
outfits. She's perfectly cute with just her new
Mhm.
bobbed haircut. She looks great. Mm.
Yeah, I like that look.
Yeah, the hat. Ugh. Ugh.
They
Hate
do
it.
her dirty
They do.
sometimes with these fashion choices. I do also love, I think it's a convenience plot point, but it's like, well, now Oz and Willow are dating. We have to figure out a way to make sure he's around, and it makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't go to summer school, I guess, because we know he's brilliant. He and Willow were both being recruited for,
Yeah.
like all sorts of
Some, like, shady software or
secretive,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
technology company. So I love Oz. So I'm happy that he did not go to summer school
Yeah.
and is back to repeat his senior year.
And, he's now a full cast member. He's in the opening credits, so we know we're
Yay.
gonna get a lot of Oz this season, and that's pretty exciting. There are new credits every season where they you know, in 90s fashion, the credits are long,
Mm,
right? Like, current shows, a lot of the credits are short, and,
yeah,
the credits show clips from the series, and it's funny at the time, it just seemed like a normal thing, and now it seems so dated. It's so
it really does.
90s. It's fun, though. I love trying to, like, recognize where all the clips are from and which episodes,
Yeah.
but you have to, like, pause and stop a lot to look at the different images because they go by pretty fast.
Well, in this, I can't remember. Cut this out if you have it later on in notes. But this season 3 opening credits is Nerf Herder's first recording of like kind of the amplified.
Remastered?
Yeah, thank you. I was like, there's a word there. But the opening credits for season 3 kind of hit different, along with the graphic design choices and the font choices. But
Right, this
season
is
3
the
credits
first
are
use of what became known as the Buffy font, the sort of gothic
beautiful.
dripping letters Buffy font, because before that, the font was, just like sort of an italic, loose, handwritten looking font. I have
Yeah.
clips of the 2 pictures, we'll put them up on Instagram if
Oh,
people wanna
awesome.
compare them.
See the difference.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's marked.
Ugh, I think maybe that's another reason why season 3 just feels like the Buffy season is
It's like everything
because,
finally came together.
yeah, it just falls into place.
Yeah.
I love it. And I will say I think we mentioned this before we started recording, uh, but Chantrell being her name previously, and she liked it because it sounded exotic. And Buffy, points out that it's a mushroom. And then she's like, well, it's an exotic mushroom.
Yeah.
Just
Just trying
being
to be
so
helpful.
nice and friendly. Ugh. But I do think it is important, I won't say much, that we are seeing this type of environment in the underbelly of Los Angeles that comes up in the Buffyverse again. So that is an aspect of this episode that I like, because it almost feels like a little teaser
Yeah.
that we get.
Okay, it's time for some trivia. I'll start off. The montage depicting the teen runaways will be used again in the Angel pitch tape, and the one image of the teenage girl with the long skirt alone in the street will be used in the credits of Angel. We talked about that a little bit. It's not my favorite
Yeah.
shot.
I never understood why it stayed.
Yeah, it's in
so
Angel
long.
for like 5 years in the
Yeah.
credits, and then I'm like, it's not even a plot that was on this show, and he wasn't even
No.
in that plot, so like, what? But for some
Like, they
reason,
could have used multiple other shots that were more relevant than this one.
yeah, or
And I
like,
guess somebody really liked it.
yeah, there's
I
something about
don't
this
know.
shot that people really wanted it to be in there. I don't know.
If you love this shot, let us know. I'm curious
Yeah.
because anyway. Also, fun fact, we talked about this a little bit already, but the weapon that Buffy used during the, kind of climax fight scene is called a hungamunga. It is a South African, is the case silent in that?
I think it's spoken. I think it's
Or is it like
Kapinga.
a kapinga? Kapinga.
Kapinga,
It's
yeah.
really fun to say, kapinga. It was also the weapon of choice for a lubber demon in Happy Anniversary in 2001. What
I think
season?
that's an Angel episode, not a Buffy
Right?
episode.
I think that's right.
Um,
Yeah, that's an Angel episode.
yeah. So, observing the logistics of the demon sweatshops. If they have a
Oof.
few dozen workers who die after a single day on Earth, they must be abducting that many people every day, which is not as insignificant as the demons claim. Kidnapping about 30 people a day for 365 days would make them kidnap about 11,000 people a year for that sweatshop, which is probably a noticeable part of the city's population and would require many demon recruiters working simultaneously to meet the quota. So a little realism thrown into the mix there.
That is kind of insane thinking about it. I will say when when I saw that bit added in to the notes, I wanted to go back and see how many missing people reports
Yeah.
there were in California during that time. So just in general, there was about, with missing person reports, there were about 21,945. So if you think about adding 11,000 people to that, just in general, that's a pretty big chunk. That would be a pretty significant spike in missing people. So yeah, the cops in Los Angeles maybe not so great either.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else will find that interesting, but I did. Next little bit of trivia is Lily wears a white t-shirt underneath a green sweater, and the visible part of the t-shirt says Dent and has a red heart with the words home of visible right inside the heart. And this is most likely a nod to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, in which a billboard is visible in a graveyard. And on that billboard, you can see a large red heart with the word Denton above it and the phrase, the home of happiness, inside of it. For all
Cool
of our
little,
Rocky Horror fans out there.
cool little Easter egg. And we alluded to this earlier, but Lily's character first appeared as Chanterelle in the episode Lie to Me, which is season 2. I don't remember what episode number. And she adopts Buffy's Anne persona at the end of this episode and would later appear on Angel as Anne with the last name Steele. And she's like a social worker who works with like homeless kids or runaways. She's in like 3 episodes of Angel, I think, as that character.
There are a couple recurring. And I like that episode, Lie to Me. I know we mentioned this, I think, in our recap.
Yeah.
And when we talked about episodes we skipped, but if you have not seen that one, that is one worth going back to watch. Another fun fact, Carlos Jacot, that's an interesting name. Jacot, who played Ken, plays a different demon in The Bachelor Party, which is another Angel episode. It's actually one that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny one.
Yeah.
All right, we have come to the part of our episode where we ask, does it still slay? And I think we might have different answers.
Yeah, I mean, instinctively, and in my personal opinion, it's a no, just because I don't find any rewatchability in it in terms of enjoying a TV show. Podcasting, yes, because I think there's a lot of social commentary that is still very apparent in the episode and I think is relevant. But this is going to be my first no for Does It Still Slay?
Amazing.
It might be the only one, too.
Yeah.
For the whole series.
I know I have a couple of no's coming up. I have to say that when I do rewatches, when I have done rewatches in the past, I often skipped this episode also. And watching it this time, it felt really fresh to me because I hadn't seen it in so long. And I liked it a lot better than I remembered liking it before.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have watched it 5 times.
So I'm going to give it a yes, it still slays.
Nice.
I think the social commentary is important. I wish that they had somebody who wasn't white in the mix there.
Right? We didn't talk about that much. I know you mentioned it, but that is a huge glaring
It's a real problem. The problem with talking about it is it's a real problem like for the rest of the series, and I don't want to get on my soapbox every episode.
Yeah, we don't need to bring it up every time.
Yeah, I think it still slays mostly though for the fight choreography and cinematography. It's so beautiful to look at that fight scene. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I don't know. I mean, it's still an episode of Buffy.
Yeah.
So it's never like truly horrible, although except for Bad Eggs, maybe.
Yeah, that's unwatchable.
Yeah, there were a bunch of no answers to Does It Still Slay that we skipped over in season 1 and season 2. A handful.
Yeah, bunch of them.
But yeah. Oh man.
Well, let's go over to the bronze and see what some of our listeners have to say.
Bronze things of bronze.
Want to read that first one?
Yay. Sure, I love this. Sam on Facebook just said, "Oh, the chunky highlights."
Yeah,
Good old
Buffy's
late
hair,
90s.
so chunky. Those are like the chunkiest of the chunky highlights. They're amazing.
Fantastic.
Becky says, I am so excited to be diving into season 3. It is one of my most favorite seasons with the addition of new characters and new storylines, and I feel like this is where the show really starts to shine. I can tell you now, my favorite moment is Jonathan's speech when giving out the award at prom. I remember shedding some tears when that happened on my first watch. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the prom episode.
Excellent.
Episode notes. Side note, we have a tabby cat named Willow Ann, named after Buffy and Willow, smiley face emoji. She also included a picture of that on Facebook of the cat. So if you want to go look at the Facebook page and you can see Willow Ann there.
Adorable.
I forgot what a hoot it was to watch the gang patrol without Buffy. When Oz throws the stake at the vampire and then says, that never works. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Willow talking with Giles about their issues with patrolling. We still have some glitches in the system, like vampires getting away. Had me cracking up. Xander had some great lines in the opening scene. Nicholas Brendan has a way with delivering those funny moments so well. It's true. He has usually the funniest lines are Xander, and Nicholas
Yeah.
Brendan does really sell it. I thought it was adorable, the back and forth between Cordy and Xander being so nervous / excited to see each other. Then when they finally do, they resort back to their bickering. Total teenager behavior. Giles working so hard to find Buffy warmed my heart. I love their relationship, and I'm excited to see how it gets even stronger this season. I was a bit annoyed with Joyce's response when Giles came to visit her. It did not feel right, like it didn't belong. Just me? Well,
Not
Kara
just
agrees
you.
with you. Um,
We may be in the minority, but
Xander has a rare wise moment when he told Willow regarding Giles looking for Buffy, Giles will find Buffy when she wants to be found, which is true.
Yeah.
Ken was super creepy. Thought that storyline was a great nod to the horrors teenagers face when abandoned by their families and the people that prey on them. Ken delivered some harsh words to Buffy, but I love how it lit a fire in her to get back to kicking some A. Instead of SS, Becky has put in $2 signs. Great moment when she is fighting and the music builds as the camera swings around and does the close up with her holding the weapon. Anyone know exactly what they were building down there? Yeah, no idea.
Right?
I laughed aloud when Lily pushed Ken while he was in the middle of his rant. Me too. I love that moment. It's so funny.
Mhm.
Great acting by Christine Sutherland when she was walking to the front door. Without a word, you could see the hope on her face that Buffy was at that door. I thought it was beautiful their reunion happened without either of them saying a word. Beautifully acted by both. Favorite quote?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Sorry, I do like how they didn't have to say anything. It was pretty
yeah.
impactful.
Favorite quotes? Xander and Cordy each with Willow. How's my hair? Buffy lifting the gate, helping them escape. I'm gonna feel this for a week. Yeah, that was a funny moment when she's like, "Oh, it works the abs, the glutes."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Buffy
man.
giving the apartment tour to Lily. Let me give you the tour, and then that concludes the tour. Not my favorite episode of the season, but it definitely still slays. I will close with a big thanks to y'all for being so involved with your listeners and our feedback. My dream job has always been
Aw.
to get to watch TV and talk about it, so this is a fun thing to be able to participate in. Wishing you both and all your listeners a wonderful holiday. Until next time, grr, arg. Thanks,
That's so
Becky.
sweet.
That was an
Thanks,
amazing
Becky.
email or Facebook post, and
Yep.
keep them coming. We really enjoy your feedback.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, and Becky, side note, I did order that Sunnydale High sweatshirt.
Nice.
So thanks for influencing me. Next up is from Jolene. She starts off with the quote, "Hey Ken, do you want to see my impression of Gandhi?" I do love that one. Makes me howl laughing every time I see that scene. Again, I love this episode. Buffy on her own is so sad to see, especially when she's dreaming about Angel and he's alive. I love how she gets her strength back as the episode goes on and she realizes she can still help people even after everything she went through. The others trying to keep things going in Sunnydale in her absence is comedy gold. Oz, I think we're kind of getting a rhythm down. We're losing half the vamps. Yeah, but rhythmically, that is a good line.
Yeah, it's classic Oz.
Yeah, but rhythmically. Gotta admit, Joyce annoys me in this one, blaming Giles for everything, but I also kind of get where she's coming from. And Giles, love him traveling the country looking for her. Anyway, so excited for the series 3 coverage. I was a bit worried you might have a bit of a break between the series. So very happy to see this post. Aw, yay. We did
Yeah.
take a little break.
Yeah, we've
But
covered a couple of
luckily,
other things, but
yeah,
yeah,
not one that's too long.
not too long. And we have
Thanks, Jolene.
not one but two voicemails from our friend Steve, and
Woohoo!
one of them is a season 2 wrap up and one of them is about this episode. So I thought we'd go in reverse order and do the one about this episode first.
Nice.
Hello, still slaying. This is Steve, and this is for season 3, episode 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Willow standing in the place of Buffy. Come on, big boy, come and get it. I love this. They took her punning for granted. No past tense rule. I forgot about these sleazy guys at the diner that Buffy's working in. Hey, look, I don't know. Maybe it was the 90s, but the sitting on the same side of the booth thing with the couple, ew. Lily. Cordelia being concerned about her appearance to Xander. By the way, Chris Carpenter, still sexy today. Never remember noticing it until now, but is this whole beginning shot at the school, is that a oneer? Has there been no cuts in this? This is constant camera movement. AW trying to be Alfred Hitchcock. Okay, I have to admit, the first time I watched this episode way back when, 20 years ago, I did not remember this girl at all. Because, we didn't have a lot of reruns or the DVDs, the VHSs back then. Oh, I forgot about this Buffy getting hit by the car. But of course, she's a slayer, so she just gets right up. The foreshadowing that we know now when Ken says, you get old fast here. Yeah, right, sir. Depressing night at the Bronze. That's right, I forgot that Joyce says she blames Giles for her leaving and because of who he was to Buffy. I had to pause it because Sarah Michelle Gellar is so powerful of an actor. Just the way she's carrying herself in this, she's so not Buffy, but it's Buffy being not Buffy. Does that make sense?
It does, actually.
I think so. Mm-hmm. Whereas the deeper Buffy gets into investigating this, the more we see her standing up straight, holding her head up high. She's walking into this dark building like that. Now she's Buffy. Ooh, he drank drain cleaner, and he's got the tattoo. Oh, of course I remember this. Creepy Ken coming out of the darkness to try to recruit Lily Chanterelle. I don't even know what a tea cozy is either, Buffy. I love this Buffy trying to sneak her way into this family home. I'm bad. I'm dirty. She realizes that she just sucks at undercover. Hey, that Ken's pretty powerful demon if he can knock Buffy out with one punch. It was a sucker punch, and now we're back to the Scoobies with Cordelia. And the vampire goes to dust, and Cordelia and Xander make out. Okay, no spoilers but Ken is talking about how the Hell Dimension time runs faster. Seriously, does this guy have a flesh-covered helmet over his head? Love it when Buffy goes into Vampire Slayer mode. I'm Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. And you are? You get goosebumps. There it is. The head tilt, eye lift, that ultimate justice Buffy. And I was just rewatching, I know this is going long, I'm sorry. I was just rewatching Aliens with Sigourney Weaver, and there's a scene at the very end where Sigourney Weaver, or towards the end, where she does the same thing. She does the head tilt and the eyes lift, and then she does something horrible. Well, not horrible, but terrific. And Lily just pushes him off the platform. Never understood the Gandhi line. So maybe you guys did some research and figured out why the Gandhi line was in here at the end.
No, I don't
get it. I get a little choked up at this reunion. Yeah. Sorry this went long. I'll talk to you in a week.
Thanks, Steve. That was awesome. I don't know what is up with the Gandhi line either. And now I really want to go back and watch Aliens and find that shot and compare them. I wonder if it was an intentional homage. Very possible.
Maybe Buffy was just, a little rusty with the one-liners and quips. So she threw out the first thing that came into her head. It didn't make a ton of sense.
I mean, and she explains it. She says, he was really pissed off.
Angry.
And it's funny, but I don't know why they picked Gandhi. It could have been really any civil rights person.
Right. Anybody that was very nonviolent and peaceful. I guess that's the joke, is obviously like the juxtaposition of
like Gandhi never smashed someone's head in. Yeah.
Jeez.
So Steve also sent us a season 2 wrap-up voicemail, so I'm going to play that now.
Hello, Kara and Penny. This is Steve, and this is just some reaction to your season 2 wrap-up. A couple of things I want to say. Okay, first off, Bad Eggs. I liked that episode. We get introduced to the Gorch brothers. They have the Beezor. That was the name of the monster, the Beezor. And just the general, like that moment when Buffy crawls out, and I think I said this when you recovered part of season 2. But when she crawls out with that axe still in her hand, and the Gorch brother is just like, I'm out of here. It's just great moments. We get to see another side of the parents, not knowing what's going on and just, selective memory kind of thing. So I thought that was great. And again, and I will never try to defend Xander and some of the things he does, except for the fact that he is a teenage boy. But hey, I was a teenage boy, so, let's see, what else? Fair. He did use, Xander did say Wiggins in the episode where they get the rocket launcher. I think they're in the school or they're somewhere, And he says, "Oh, I'm having a thought. Yeah, that's a thought. Now I'm having a plan." And then like the lights go out, and he goes, "And now I'm having a Wiggins." So
Nice.
he does use the term Wiggins in season 2.
good.
But anyway, can't wait for season 3. Can't wait for every episode of season 3. I've already sent you a voicemail on Anne, and I'm not gonna spoil anything. But talk to you later.
Thanks, Steve. And I'm pretty sure Steve
Love
is
it.
going to come on when we do the Zeppo, but maybe we should get him on sooner than that because that's the second half of the season.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, somebody who's
For
going to be
sure.
in Xander's court a little bit because we do kind of
And-
trash on Xander a little bit.
And I will say, like, I do try to keep in mind that he's a teenage boy. It's kind of the same thing I feel with the Ron Weasley character in Harry Potter. Honestly, that's who it kind of reminds me of. Getting really frustrated at the emotional immaturity and jealousy and all this stuff. But keeping in mind, teenagers.
Yeah.
Growth. It happens.
That's true. All right, that is the end of the main section of the podcast.
Stay tuned for the Watcher's Diaries if you want to hear the spoilery discussion. And I know we definitely have some stuff to say about spoilers.
If you want to join the conversation, like Steve and Jolene and Becky and Sam, you can find all our contact information at podcastica.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podcastica or Instagram at stillslayingcast. We also have a dedicated email for feedback that is stillslayingfeedback@gmail.com. You can write an email like normal or record a voice message and just attach it to an email and send it in. Also, pet pictures. We're happy to see those.
Oh, yeah. Always. Pet pictures, Buffy merch, all that jazz. I'm good to go. You can write in, record a voice message, find links to our social media pages and all of our other shows. Just, come join the Podcastica family. It's a great time. There's something for everyone. And I will plug an episode that Penny was on just very recently that I listened to, actually getting ready this morning. It is the Podcastica Network's Star Wars TV cast holiday special for this year. And it's going over Empire Strikes Back. And I will just say, it made me want to rewatch every Star Wars DVD that I have. It's just a good time listening to everybody talk about something that, they love. And the chemistry between you guys this year was spot on. I had such
We had
a fun
such
time.
a good time recording it. It really
I
felt like a party.
I was sitting there. So if you are at all into Star Wars or just, want a good example, I think, of the kind of Podcastica vibes, that's a good episode to listen to. It was really fun.
Yeah, we had such a good time. The Star Wars cast on Podcastica has covered all of the live action Star Wars shows on Disney Plus. And I've listened to all of that coverage. My favorite of all of those shows is definitely Andor, and the Andor cast was really fantastic. And I got a lot out of that experience. So if you like Star Wars, you might want to check those out. There's also, right now, we just started on Podcastica covering the new Marvel season of What If. I think the first episode dropped yesterday. And Disney is dropping the episodes one a day for 9 solid days, which is a crazy schedule for the podcasters. And I don't think that they're going to drop a podcast a day. I think what they're doing is first they're going to do 2 episodes in each podcast, and I don't think they're going to do it all in 9 days. But they are covering it, and one of the people covering it is Kirk Manley, who has done a lot of the cover art for some of the Podcastica shows. He's an artist, and he's just a really cool guy, and it's worth checking out his art also. I'll put the link in the show notes. He does a lot of pop culture related art for various shows like Walking Dead and Star Wars and other stuff.
Awesome.
And if you like what we do, we're going to say this every time. Hit follow, subscribe, 5-star rating, a review, whatever. Interact with us in some way.
Yeah, we love it. Next time, I'm so excited, we'll be attending a hootenanny at the Summers house in Dead Man's Party. Thanks, everyone, and
welcome to my world. I hope you like it.
You're never leaving.
All right, that is the end of our non-spoiler section. If you want to avoid spoilers, stop listening now. We've given you plenty of warning. We're going to spoil everything starting now.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
During the Jeep Wrap Up the Year sales event, give yourself the gift of freedom with a wide selection of great offers on your favorite Jeep brand vehicles. Right now, get 15% below MSRP for an average of $8,258 under MSRP on the purchase of a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport 4x4. Not compatible with any other consumer retail incentive offers. $8,258 average based on 15% below average MSRP from all 2023 Gladiator Sport 4x4 models in dealer stock. Residency restrictions apply. Take retail delivery from dealer stock by 1/2. Jeep is a registered trademark.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah, that's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
Over at the Watcher's Diaries. So,
yes.
First up, Anne, when she goes on to Angel, is part of some of my favorite episodes of Angel. She runs this runaway shelter, and at one point, they all get attacked by zombie policemen with
That
Wesley
was a
and Gunn.
wild episode.
It's completely bonkers and really funny. It's
so fun.
I had said actually Dead Man's Party coming up next week was the only time that there are zombies on Buffy, but there is that occasion of zombies on Angel. Yeah.
That's true. That I will say, like, I don't know, Anne's character, Anne Chantrell, her character arc, while this might be my least favorite part of it in this episode, I do really love seeing what they did with her over on Angel, especially, with us seeing her way back in Buffy season 2 as Chanterelle, and she just seems very, weak-willed, and we see her as this victim, and I think she sees herself as a victim, but we see her develop into this, kind of strong, powerful female figure who ends up dedicating her life to these kids in LA without direction and helping people who are in the position that she used to be in. And I just think that's a kind of an underrated arc sometimes. I love what they did with her.
She doesn't have any supernatural powers or connections, and she finds a way, inspired by Buffy and Buffy's selflessness and Buffy's strength, to be strong and help people. And she gets, tangled back up with some supernatural hijinks because of that's the show that Angel is. But she remains a very human character, and it's nice sometimes to remember that you don't need superpowers to help people.
Yeah, that's true. And I do like how it is so clearly kind of inspired by her run-ins with Buffy and her interactions with Buffy. and that kind of inner strength that she found because Buffy gave her this opportunity. She gave her the apartment to get set up in and the job, and Anne took it and ran with it. It's nice to see. I will say this episode in general almost feels like a tester episode for Angel. The setting in Los Angeles and kind of the gritty, underground, the vibes are kind of similar, which is funny because I love Angel.
Yeah.
I love that show. But I know they had the idea of Angel fairly early on in season 2. So part of me has always wondered if this was kind of a mini
Like a tester.
introduction.
Yeah.
Because we know later on we find out that underground kind of slave hell dimension factory is a Wolfram and Hart operation.
Oh, I didn't
Yep.
remember that. Oh, of course it
Yep.
is.
So I love that in this episode. And it's the first time I think we really get an idea of demons having motivations other than just wanting to watch the world burn. Like there's
Yeah.
this greed there, and that definitely comes up more so on Angel as a series than Buffy. So that part of this premiere really, makes me happy. Getting
Yeah.
little hints of what's to come.
It's interesting because I often say, I don't like lawyer TV shows, but
Yeah.
I love everything about the Wolfram and Hart storyline. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
It is fun. The fact that it's a law firm, like it's just perfect. I don't know.
It's
Tongue in
hilarious.
cheek and hilarious.
And some of the characters that come out of Wolfram and Hart, Lila and Lindsay, and oh my God, they're so funny and rich and campy and evil, and I'm very much looking forward to when we get to covering
yeah.
that, which is going to
I
be
can't wait.
maybe the latter half of 24. It's
Yeah,
probably
it's
when
like
we're
not too far away, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. I have had to stop myself from going back and rewatching it to
Me too.
keep it fresh for the podcast, because watching Buffy again obviously just makes me want to dive right back into
I know. It's so hard to
the
not roll over to
Buffyverse.
the next episode when I watch. I'm like, I want to
Mhm.
see Dead Man's Party again.
Ugh.
Which we can now start watching after we finish this. Although I don't ever watch the new episode until I'm done editing, because I just want to stay in one headspace until I get to the new headspace.
That's smart.
But
That makes sense.
that's just my own little weird quirk. You can go ahead and watch
Mhm.
Dead Man's Party this afternoon.
I think I will, because I love that episode. I also was curious when you watched this episode, or if it's been too long, maybe if it reminded you of Bargaining Part 1, the season 6 premiere after Buffy has died
Oh, and
and
she has to crawl out of her own grave.
yeah, and we're seeing, because the very beginning of Bargaining Part 1 has always stood out to me in contrast to this one, because we're seeing the Scoobies deal with
No
patrolling
Buffy.
and Buffy being gone, and I love Bargaining Part 1. So part of me, I think I always feel like this episode just doesn't do as great of a job. Like the storyline's not as interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I think once we get to season 6, I'm gonna have to look back and compare the openings, because that's just what I think about every time I think about Anne and the opening and watching them adjust. There's no Buffy bot, obviously.
Yeah, and Willow
But
doesn't have like
huh,
superpowers
yeah.
yet.
Different time. But I think about that each time I go back and rewatch or even think about Anne. Man, I love season. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's definitely far away.
Yeah, let's let season 6
Yeah.
hang out there in the future and talk a little bit about Buffy comes home to Sunnydale and reunites with Joyce, and it's a beautiful moment. And
Mhm.
we know that season 3 is going to have a lot of themes of identity, right? So this episode was like, you're no one, and then she's like, I'm Buffy. And then season 3, Faith gets introduced as this sort of anti-Buffy, and it makes Buffy question a lot about herself in comparison to Faith, right? Is she like Faith? Is she different from Faith? Are she and Faith friends? Are she and Faith enemies? It's a very complex relationship that goes back and forth between the two of them throughout the season. And this moment at the beginning when she declares who she is important.
Oh, yes. And Faith, gosh, Faith's, we're going to have so much to talk about once we start getting to Faith episodes. But that arc is just so well done. And the way that they set it up thematically, back from pretty much, halfway through season 2, we start to see different themes and plot points that become relevant when Faith is introduced. And in this episode in particular, seeing how Buffy just has that need to help others, and she's compelled to, do what's right, even when she very much wants to disappear into nothing and is dealing with her own personal issues. That is something that comes up time and time again when we look at Faith compared to Buffy. So it's already, I can't wait. They already do such a good job at setting us up to have some really interesting discussions and moments later on.
I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
So zombies next week.
Yeah. I love that episode. And the fact that we're still dealing with all the drama of Buffy disappearing without an explanation surfaces very, very much on the next episode. And I like the way they deal with it in this next one. I think it's one of the, well, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah,
but
it's going to be a lot of fun to cover it.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to it. And
sure.
Yeah, I feel like we're good.
Yeah, I don't think anything else, this happens every time, anything else that's too spoilery would just go off onto tangents of talking about
Yeah, like we could just keep talking about this all day. So with that said, I'm going to call it. That's the complete end of our show. Thank you everybody for listening, especially if you made it this far. And until next time, I am Penny.
And I'm Kara. Keep slaying!